This week, a new law has ignited a fiery debate around surrogacy in Israel. A nationwide strike is scheduled for this Sunday, with politicians, rights groups, and celebrities, and even some multinational companies weighing in. One of the main points of contention, the rights of gay men and couples to choose surrogacy in Israel. Our international affairs correspondent, Bianca Zanini, has the story.
This week, the Israeli government passed the so-called surrogacy law, allowing single women and heterosexual couples the right to state-supported surrogacy, but denying that right to single men and gay couples. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu under fire for backflipping on his promise to support an amendment that would allow single fathers to access surrogacy.
Benjamin Netanyahu, neged.
Rights groups have taken to the streets, protesting what they see as blatant discrimination. Meanwhile, some organizations are warning that it shouldn't be about who can use surrogacy services, but whether it should be legal at all. Commercial surrogacy is a controversial issue dividing rights groups and feminists across the globe. Critics saying it creates a dangerous industry where poor and vulnerable women who have little other choice are forced to rent out their bodies and then sell their babies to someone else, someone with money. Others point out that women should have the right to choose what to do with their bodies, and that it happens anyway. Their argument is that regulated surrogacy is the best way to protect everyone involved. In Israel, there are strict rules in place to protect the surrogate mother, making the public debate less about the practice and more about who has the right to access the service. This Sunday, a nationwide strike is expected in Israel. Several major Israeli companies and large multinationals, including Microsoft and PayPal, have offered their support and guaranteed a paid day off for employees joining Sunday's protests. The amendment will reportedly be brought back up in the fall. But for now, the message from the government is clear. Bianca Zanini, I-24 News.
Yes, with us in studio now, LGBTQ activist Yonathan Feffer. Thank you for joining us for this important discussion. And Yonathan, we should mention that part of the reason for the frustration we've seen with the Prime Minister this week is because he had originally said he would support this amendment, then didn't. This was very disappointing from the Prime Minister.
It's very disappointing, but I think we need to take a bigger perspective. In the LGBT community, I don't think a lot of us expected much out of the Prime Minister, because this government is for years been taking back everything that we've won, and with hard fights over decades of work. And what this culminated in is the first time that discrimination is explicitly legislated into the Israeli law books. This didn't happen before. What we had are maybe old laws, outdated laws that needed to be updated. This time they had a chance to update it, and they actually decided to, take us back 100 years.
Yonatan, if you look at, certainly Tel Aviv is known for its gay pride parade, and it's going to spread to other cities. But if you compare the, let's say, the gay rights movement in Israel, it hasn't really embarked on these kind of public protests in the way I think that you look at U.S. groups like ACT UP during the AIDS crisis. Is this perhaps a red light and a turning point for the community here? We have to be more vocal.
Bingo, exactly. I have friends in New York from ACT UP, and this is, we usually joke in Israel that what happened in New York 15 years ago, 20 years ago, will happen now, and we see it again. I think this is a watershed movement for the LGBTQ community, because we now see the grassroots, people at the streets so angry, but doing something with that anger, with social media, with their ability to appeal to their employers, and their employers understanding the benefit and both the moral and the business argument for LGBT rights.
Yonatan, the LGBTQ community also has representation in the ruling party, in the Likud party. Amir Ohana, of course, the member of parliament. Do you feel like Ohana and others like him are just not doing enough?
In Israel, we usually say, let's just cut through all of this. The bottom line is, I don't know the circumstances, and I do know, but let's forget about the circumstances, whether they're doing enough or not. They're not doing progress. They're not bringing us any progress. So what's the difference if he's in or out of, parliament?
Just for our viewers, explain then what, for example, gay couples have to do. I know they have to go abroad, for example. It could be very costly in terms of surrogacy.
Yeah, so my husband and I are 15 years. 15 years together, by the way. The state, first of all, does not think we're husband and husband. For them, they were just two people living in an apartment for 15 years. We would need to go to the U.S. We would need to spend between $150,000 and $300,000 to start a family. Then the family would not be recognized here.
$300,000.
Yeah, depending on how many cycles you need to go through. And then the family would not be recognized. Us being a couple is not recognized. Each of us will have to adopt each other's child, and then we would have to go through months, maybe even more than a year, of the state checking to see if our relationship is up to some tests that I have. No one else has to go through that. If you're a heterosexual couple, it's enough for the mother in the delivery room to point at you or anyone else and say, that's the father, and that's it. The state recognizes it, that you're the father of that baby. Done. And you got all the rights. For us, it's years of spent time, money, and heartache, because our parenting and our couplehood and our family ties are thrown aside and discounted.
You know, Yonatan, you know what they say about this government, what activists say about this government is it's a religious government. It might be an extremist government in some people's views. Do you believe a popular protest like this can really make a significant difference in terms of legislation?
So, this is a sociological question, right? I don't know exactly how it's going to run, and no one knows how it's going to run up the ladder. But I do know it changes a lot in the business community. We see 200 organizations already, stepping up, which they haven't before, both in words and in deeds. We see it on the streets. We see a surge of support for us, because I think what people know, and not just in the LGBTQ community, this is very important to notice. People realize that if you want to know where society is heading, you need to look at how it's treating its most vulnerable. So now it's transgender women. We had one who was attacked viciously just last week. It's against also lesbian parents. We have a Supreme Court case coming in 2 days. Or 3 days. It's against gay parents. Next is going to be women and other minorities and other groups. People know that historically, if you look at what happens in societies that mistreat their minorities, it's not a good sign.
It's a very good point to reflect on in this debate, Calev.
Absolutely. And of course, we'll see what happens on that strike on Sunday. Yonathan Feffer, LGBTQ activist.